What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Dynamic Dan, back again with another reaction. This time it is OverSimplified's The French Revolution Part 2. Now, it has been like 2 months since I watched it, so I figure, it's about time to react to the second part, post it, and then continue on to more Oversimplified because I love history. Now, especially since we're caught up with Helvaboss, and I want to make sure we're doing like a consistent reaction stuff. So I'm not focusing on gaming on this channel anymore, so gotta pump out more reactions and more consistent basis too. But yeah, I'm excited to react to this video. But before we do, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers before the end of this year, so we have about 3 months left. Oh my God, it's coming fast. And I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed if you like the content and help me reach that goal. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
King Louis and his family were now in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where for the next couple of years, he watched as the revolutionary government...
Okay, oh, that's right. Okay, so Louis is in the palace. There's a revolutionary government now that started chopping off people's heads. That was the whole Bastille Day stuff of the peasants raiding Bastille. So King Louis is kind of in a fucked position.
Began to strip away his power, and fearing for his safety, he had to stay on their good side. Hey, look who it is. It's my favorite revolutionaries. Yep.
Is it your favorite
number
revolutionaries?
one fan. What can I do for you? Hey, King Louis.
Oh,
so
wow.
we've made a few decisions. First, all of your friends in the nobility are going to have to pay taxes the same as everyone else. Great idea. I love it. And as a side note, the tax money can no longer pay for all your lavish parties. Great. I hate those parties. They're so awkward. And also, we're taking away your Porsche. Oh, come on.
Not the Porsche. Anything but the Porsche. But hey, honestly, that sounds really very reasonable to be like, hey, tax money can't be used for your parties. Can't be. You guys got to pay taxes now. But the Porsche is a line too far.
I mean, yay. The king continually found demand after demand being made of him to prove his support for the revolution.
And lose some weight.
A mob would invade the palace and demand he wear the revolutionary bonnet. This is the face of a man who is definitely pretending he wants to...
Oh my God. What? He looks so just like upset or just unfazed right now. He's just like a clown that they're dressing up before they kill him. Poor man.
Wear that bonnet. Now around here, I want to mention that one thing King Louis had a problem with was people constantly raiding his palace. But one thing he didn't have a problem with was raiding noobs on this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a brand new collection.
We're actually going to skip this a bit.
Click on the... Now where was I?
Because they're not sponsoring my channel.
Seeing the situation rapidly turning against him, the king decided it might be a good idea to leave France and mount a campaign to retake his country from abroad. Luckily for him, he was married to an Austrian. So on the night of June 20th, 1791, the king and his family disguised themselves as servants and attempted to flee to the Austrian Netherlands. The royal carriage made a stop in the town of Varennes, and the...
Hold up. Why would you take the royal carriage? You should probably take something else that's a little bit more inconspicuous. Why would you take the royal carriage? Because I feel like people would notice that so fast. But who knows? Maybe that was the only vehicle they could grab at the moment's notice. But it looks like such a long way they traveled. Like, that's quite a few miles. They could have ditched it somewhere and grabbed a different one. But who knows?
Postmaster there was like, hey guys, what's up?
Where
are you off to? We are but a collection of inconspicuous servants heading for the border for no particular reason at all. Say. You, the fat one. You look kind of familiar. Aren't you the king? Nope. Let me see your passport. It says here you're King...
The king's passport.
Louis the 16th. Nope. Not me.
Totally not King Louis.
Take him away, boys. The king was promptly returned to Paris.
Oh,
now,
no.
The jig was up. His lack of support for the revolution
he's fucked.
was clear to all.
He's so fucked, he's gonna die.
Him a straight-up traitor who tried to abandon his people.
Yep.
As a result, the new constitution of 1791...
Why is he so fat? They're doing him dirty, man. They're doing him real dirty.
He reduced his powers to that of a
and Constitution is spelled wrong.
Constitutional monarch. However, radicals, such as those in the Jacobin Club, were outraged that the king wasn't to be removed entirely. So a month later, these radicals staged a protest on the Champ de Mars. calling for the king's removal. The government of Paris feared an insurrection was mounting, and they sent the military to disperse the crowd. The confrontation escalated and resulted in the Revolutionary National Guard firing on a crowd of revolutionaries.
Oh, God.
It was a massacre.
That's actually horrible. Okay, this is in French, so I can't read any of that, but that's very interesting. That's very cool that they have like a depiction of this that was from probably like the newspapers at the time. That drew it up real quick, how it looked. Like, they have this landmark right here to show how people are on top of it. That's actually pretty cool. Like, they didn't have photos back then, really. I don't think the camera was invented yet. I think it was still a few more years before they invented the camera and started taking like the really old-timey photos. But 1791. Yeah, I think it was like the 1800s when camera was invented. Anyways, I digress. That is actually pretty cool. That's a pretty cool piece of history right there.
The incident exposed a deep
Not the
division
event.
within the Brotherhood of the Revolution.
Not the event.
On one
Future.
side, the moderates who wanted to keep the king as a figurehead. On the other, radicals who wanted to see the king deposed and heads roll. In the wake of the massacre,
Off with their heads.
These radicals received a wave
They're like the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland.
of support. And speaking of rolling heads, one form
roll
of equality the revolution introduced was equality in execution. This meant no more torturous drawing and quartering, no more inhumane hanging. They wanted all criminals, regardless of economic status, to receive the same penalty, a quick and painless one. Luckily, a man by
You know, that's kind of fair. Why isn't it zooming in? There we go. That's honestly kind of fair to want that. Just because it makes it so that all classes are equal, from nobility to peasants and things. So I can totally see why they wanted any death sentence to be exactly the same. It's like here in the U.S. where we don't sentence people differently based on their we don't sentence people differently based on who they are or where they're from. We sentence them based on the type of crime they committed. Like murder or attempted murder can get you like life in prison, whereas stealing a certain amount of money, maybe slap on the wrist, fine, a couple $1,000 or a couple months in prison, depends, right? So yeah, I get that. I can understand why the new French government would want to equalize all that after the unfair treatment that the peasants have been receiving for decades, centuries at this point. I get it.
by the name of Dr. Joseph Guillotine had an idea. A heavy blade that
guillotine!
falls like thunder. The head flies off, blood spurts, and the man is no more. The guillotine, otherwise known as the National Razor. The guillotine made its
National
debut in
Razor?
1791
Oh my
as the
God.
new form of execution. The writings of Marat and others continued to call for the execution of
Life
anyone
is a
suspected
beach.
of working against the revolution. For him,
Lavender
this included
scented
some members of the clergy
candles.
and nobility who had previously benefited from the cruel system of inequality that existed before the revolution.
Exactly,
In many parts
yeah.
of the countryside, local lords had found themselves become a target. Sire, the peasants, they're revolting. Oh, come on, that's a bit harsh. Sure, they smell a bit, but I wouldn't say they're revolting. Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Increasingly,
that
these
revolting.
French aristocrats began fleeing France to find solitude in other parts of Europe. And once again, fear began to take.
I would too, man, because that is terrifying. Like, your life's on the line just because you're wealthy. Maybe you were an asshole and you did like actual really bad things to peasants, but I'm assuming some of them might have been just decent lords. But because of everything going on, it just became in vogue to kill the nobility and just everybody wants them gone, even if they were a decent person, right? Like, I can totally see that happening. Happens online all the time. Like, a guy said something like out of step maybe, and he's just crucified for it for the rest of his life, which isn't how our justice system really works. Surprisingly, in a lot of first world countries, it's like, okay, there's a punishment, there's a time of that punishment ending, but in in the eyes of people, if you commit a heinous crime, it's like, no, you're done. I never want to see you. You should be dead for what you did. Sometimes it's too far. Sometimes it's not, like with with a bunch of stuff going on recently on YouTube and like Minecraft YouTubers, right? I'm going to say it like that because I don't want to say too much more in that or get into like all that news. But those guys should not be around anymore. because socially it was totally unacceptable what they did. But if somebody was like stealing like a bike, like a cheap $100 bike from a shop, he should be punished, but he shouldn't be like gone for the rest of their life from society and never allowed to rejoin. That's too much for the crime he committed. So it all depends on the crime. But yeah, I can see. I totally understand why this is all happening in the French Revolution at the time. This makes sense. Makes sense.
Take hold. The privileged classes of these foreign nations didn't like what they were seeing because they feared revolutionary ideas may spread to their own land.
Yeah.
The National Assembly, actually now the Legislative Assembly, feared that these nations may decide to attack. Then why don't we attack them first? No, you
That's
idiots,
a bad
we're
idea.
definitely not ready for war yet.
Yeah. You guys are a new government. You ain't
Somebody say
ready for
something?
shit.
France declared war on Austria in April 1792 and immediately got pummeled.
I didn't know they did that. Oh my god. That's such a dumb move. Whew.
It also didn't help that Austria's ally, Prussia, joined in the fighting. The
Prussia?
Prussian Duke of Brunswick posted a letter warning the revolutionaries
That's
that
not
if
even a
anything
country
happened
anymore,
to
is
the
it?
king, he would burn Paris to the ground. The Duke's letter proved to be a massive success in inspiring the people of Paris to do the exact opposite of what he intended. They were enraged by the threat, and on the 10th of August 1792, the tension in the city exploded, and a mob stormed the king's palace. Fighting broke out between the revolutionaries and the king's Swiss guard, with casualties in the hundreds. King Louis fled and took refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly, where Robespierre and his radical Jacobins were gaining ever more power. Given the developing situation, the chamber decided to hold a vote,
Screwed.
and in what some considered to be a second revolution, it was decided to suspend the monarchy entirely. King Louis XVI was now just plain old Louis, and he was sent to a prison cell where an eye could be kept on him. A month later, the newly established National Convention officially declared the French Republic, and society underwent a massive change. Enlightened ideas of democracy and equality were being implemented, but very quickly, these ideas seemed to become secondary to fear, paranoia, and a thirst for blood.
I mean, that makes sense why it would suddenly change like that. Because, hey, democracy, it all sounds great and good, but if you don't have a strong foundation laid out, a lot of bad actors can suddenly just come in and take complete control. We've seen that plenty of times in other countries. That's not the U.S. Sorry, my brain's a little dead right now. I've been recording videos all day. But we've seen that in other countries where we go in trying to establish democracy because we don't like that there's like communists or whatever taking over. We try and establish that, and then we pull out, and then suddenly, oh, would you look at that? The people that we didn't want to have power suddenly took power. There's a reason why the U.S. doesn't engage in wars of ideals anymore, because it just doesn't make sense, and it's all worthless. And the American public really hated that. I think it was the Vietnam War that made America really stop doing that, because when the this is a total side tangent because of my ADHD, by the way. This is the Vietnam War. The veterans who came home from that were honestly hated by the public. They were despised. They weren't treated very nicely or right, and it's a sad thing. But that's what happened, because you're trying to fight based on ideals and not based on like, hey, that guy, we need him gone because he's making everything bad. Like the fight against Hitler was so justified because of how crazy the guy was for what he was doing and the land he was taking and just the destruction he was causing for his own power and purpose. That was so much more justified than us with the Vietnam War. It's like, oh yeah, we're going in to spread democracy. Okay. How are we going to help the people? Well, we didn't. They got screwed up in the process, unfortunately. They got the people who helped the Americans once we pulled out, they got really screwed over. I've heard stories from my Vietnamese friends who are like first generation over here about what happened. And it was just really sad that they lost like family members, uncles, grandparents, just because when the U.S. pulled out, they couldn't protect them. They couldn't get them out. And when the communists finally took over all of Vietnam, they went through and purged anybody who helped the United States. It was a sad thing to hear, but it happens. So totally understand this. I don't know where the side whole rabbit thing is going anymore, so we're going to continue.
The Republic began working to violently remove any semblance of the old royalist regime. The church became a prime target. Priests who refused to take an oath to the revolution were deported or arrested. A new state-sponsored atheistic religion named the Cult of Reason was created as a replacement for the Catholic Church. Notre Dame, along with many other churches, had their religious treasures destroyed and were converted to temples of reason. Even the Christian calendar.
Hold up. I get that you don't want it, but dude, just put that stuff in a museum. Oh my God. I guess they want to get rid of the whole idea of religion and what it stands for so people aren't tempted to follow it or believe it. But holy shit, that's just kind of sad to lose those artifacts that would be cool to see in a museum. Sad.
Didn't survive, as a brand new revolutionary calendar was soon introduced. Hey honey, I'm home. Yeah, whatever, jerk. Whoa, what's wrong with you? You forgot. Forgot what? Everything. This entire year. My birthday was on the 3rd of Germinal, our anniversary was the 12th of Thermidor, and you promised that in Frimaire, we'd go on a romantic weekend trip to Venice. No, I said we'd do that in December. December hasn't been a thing for years. The government of Paris, now under the control of the radical sans-culottes, began rounding up suspected enemies of the revolution and sending them to prison in the thousands. Naturally, a large number of those arrested were members of the clergy and aristocracy. As France's foreign enemies continued to close in, panic spread. Georges Danton made impassioned calls for men to defend the Republic, and tens of thousands of troops left Paris for the front lines. However, in their absence, Paris was left to its own devices. As enemy troops arrived in Verdun,
what happened to Paris?
The people of Paris feared that their crowded prisons were becoming a breeding ground for counter-revolutionary conspiracy. What would happen if the Prussians reached Paris and freed the aristocrats? Marat believed
that's a fair thing to kind of fear, because you took all these people that you don't like and put them in prison, and you got a war. So, and it's very likely that the Persians or Austrian armies will get through your defensive line, because your military is not that great right now because you're still new. They get through the line and get to Paris and then free the prisoners. And oh God, that could be really bad for your new government.
He knew what would happen. The aristocrats would enact their vengeance on the people. Fearing those they had already imprisoned, mobs descended on Paris's prisons. They broke in, and during the brutal September massacres, aristocrats, priests, and others were tried and executed on the spot. Even women and children weren't spared. With over 1,600 victims, word of the massacre spread across Europe. One British newspaper wondered, are these the rights of man? Is this the liberty of human nature? But there was still one man in particular that Robespierre...
Holy shit, dude. That is insane, just to, do that. Oh my God. I have no words. I'm just shocked that that's actually what happened. Wow. Men be crazy sometime. Man be crazy.
Robespierre and his radicals really wanted to see executed. Austria and Prussia pledged that after they defeated France, they'd return King Louis to the throne. Well, checkmate Austria and Prussia, because you can't return a man to the throne if he's already dead. Citizen Louis Capet was put on trial for treason. Obviously, he was found guilty, but his punishment was less certain. Many moderates wanted to simply deport him, but Robespierre insisted the revolution could only live if the king was dead. A vote was held, and by just one vote, Louis was sentenced to the guillotine. If you don't mind, I'd like to say a few words first.
By one vote. That one vote changed history entirely. That's insane.
Gentlemen, I am innocent of everything of which I am accused. Wait, you're too loud. They can't hear me. Hang on, I haven't finished yet. Wait, dude.
They didn't care.
Uncool.
Uncool.
In her prison cell, Marie Antoinette heard the guns fire, signaling her husband's death. Before long, she would meet the same fate.
Oh my God.
Back on the war front,
that's
France
horrible,
defied
dude.
all expectations and actually managed to push the enemy back. But then more countries joined the coalition against France, and it all went to pot again. What do?
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I can totally understand. Well, every other country that has a monarchy still is going to turn on them and want to stop what's happening in France, because they don't want that to happen in the other countries. Because at this time, Britain definitely wasn't a democrat, a democracy. Democrat. Wasn't a democracy. There we go. The U.S. at this time, the French Revolution happened after the American Revolution, so it was a constitutional republic now. So yeah, I can totally see why they would want to stop this in Europe because they didn't have as much control or sway across the sea, and it was a lot harder to deal with. Um, but yeah, France is kind of screwed if they don't figure a way out of this.
Grip the masses.
They probably do.
The National Convention introduced a conscription law, with each regional department having to meet a certain quota of men for the army. However, not everyone was happy with this new law. You see, while Paris was definitely a hotbed for radical revolutionary fervor, some of the regions outside of Paris weren't quite so keen on the revolution.
See, that makes total sense. Like, this is kind of what it makes me think of with the U.S., with how different the states are. And then if you go into, like, blue states, if you leave the city where it's heavily blue and go more out to the countryside of it, it's more red. So you see this happen in states, and then zooming out more into like the U.S. as a whole. This is in every country. Is like the hotbed stuff. Maybe the values are so different, even though they're within the same country. Is what I'm just trying to say. So I totally get that this could be a big issue for a lot of people. Like conscription, I don't want to get conscribed to a military. Like for guys in the U.S., once you turn 18 on your birthday, you got to go to like the post office and sign up for the Service Act. I don't remember the Service Act, but pretty much the draft. You have to sign up for the draft, and then from the ages of 18 to 26, if we get into a war and we need to draft people, your name's put in there, and if your birthday's called up in the raffle, you're going to war. You're going to the military, you sign it, you go report duty. If you don't report duty, you could face prison, which is very extreme. Thankfully, we haven't had to do that since World War II, but that could happen still. That's still a thing that could happen if we're very wounded as a country. And I know that a bunch of people are wanting women to now be names put into the draft. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I haven't really looked at the issue, but that is a thing that people are talking about doing. And it's just a shitty thing. I don't like conscription. I like that our army's mainly just volunteer based if you want to go serve, and they do offer benefits for that. I don't know if they outweigh them now. My dad served like 32 years in the military, in the army, which is a long time. And when I was like thinking about college and stuff when I was younger, he looked at me and just said, I loved my time serving in the military, but it's not what it used to be. So I recommend not going down that path if you can help it. I recommend you go do something else besides the military because it had changed so much in the last 32 years. But yeah, that all said, conscription, crazy. I also wanted to say is that even though it's from the ages like 18 to 26, that can easily be expanded out if the country is in need of it. So we go through the young guys first, and then we start opening up year after year, like 27, 28, 29, in the 30s, maybe in the 40s, depending on if we need the troops. So I'm against conscription. I don't like that. Like, you tell me I'm having this fun life to do this, but I understand why it's a thing, why it's necessary, and why countries enact it if it's to protect their way of life, pretty much. So, yeah, that was a fun rabbit hole.
Some were largely still conservative, still supported the church, and just didn't suffer from that much inequality before the revolution. So as the revolution turned increasingly violent and anti-Christian, many were outraged. Now, they were being conscripted to fight for the new republic they hated. That was the last straw.
Yeah, I can totally see that being
in a number
thing
of
people
regions
disliked.
across France. Some would last for years, such as in the northwest, where a large-scale uprising was led by the Owls. Why were they called the Owls? Because their leader was named Jean Owl. Why was he called Jean Owl? Possibly because he could do a really good impression of an owl. Really?
Of an owl?
That's what we're going with? Owls? Just because this guy can do an impression of one? Hit him
It's
with
really
it, Jean.
good.
Hoot, hoot.
I'm convinced.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It is pretty damn good.
The Chouannerie uprising lasted all the
They're hooting into battle. Hoot, 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 hoot. They're hooting into battle. That's hilarious.
way until 1800. In the summer of 1793, the southern city of Toulon invited the British Navy over for some tea and crumpets. And then they asked if they'd possibly like to stay and occupy the city. Being an important
Stay and
naval base,
occupy
this was
the
a heavy
city?
blow to the Republic, who sent a really
Oh my god. This is just insane. what is going on.
Relatively
Alright.
unknown young captain
I hit the wrong button again. Damn it.
by the name of Napoleon
used to the setup.
Bonaparte to help stage the siege of
Napoleon!
the city. Toulon was recaptured
He's
by
in.
France in the winter, and for his service, Napoleon was promoted to the rank of brigadier general. The most infamous counter-revolution,
Le
however,
Hurray.
occurred in the Vendée region. Throughout 1793,
Vendée.
revolutionary forces clashed with the region's Catholic and royal army. The Republic defeated the counter-revolution through cruel pacification. In particular, General
Pacification?
Jean-Baptiste
What does that
Carrier
mean?
committed brutal atrocities. In one instance,
Oh.
he had thousands of civilians, priests, women, and children tied to ships, which were then sunk. Carrier would later be found guilty of war crimes and executed.
Oh my god. Dude, that's so fucked up. Why am I shocked by the Republic that just caused crazy did crazy things, killed hundreds of people with guillotine? Why am I shocked that they had somebody like that in their military that killed civilians like that, dude? That's horrible.
Back in Paris, the government was still dominated by moderates. With the war going badly,
Oh, good.
revolts in the provinces,
Moderates
and the economy
are
getting
good.
worse, it seemed the government
Yep.
just wasn't doing a very good job.
Go
Radicals'
downhill.
fear for the safety of the revolution
bathtub guy.
intensified, and Marat even began calling for the moderates in the government to be executed. In return, the moderates
No.
called for the arrest of Marat. This
I mean, that's fair. You're calling for moderates to be executed because you're a crazy guy in a bathtub who doesn't agree with them? Dude, come on.
led to a chain of events with the two sides in heated conflict. Robespierre declared the Jacobins to be an insurrection and called on the people to arm
Really?
themselves. It all ended on the 31st of May 1793
Huh.
with the National Convention surrounded by radical sans-culottes and 29 moderate Girondin politicians arrested. From this moment on, the moderates ceased to be a political force. Robespierre and his radicals would be in almost total control of the government.
Wow.
And this brings us to the story of a woman named Charlotte.
Before we get to that story, just wow. They've essentially taken over the government. And now they're going to do the extreme thing that they believe in doing. And that's going to make life really hard for a lot of people. Because you live in a society with a bunch of different people, with a bunch of different perspectives, especially like in America. You're not going to always agree with each other. That's impossible. You can't agree with everything. But you need to be able to meet in the middle on a bunch of things. And I think that's just something that's just crazy in the world we live in, is that just based on your beliefs, even though you're not like doing anything bad or wrong, can get you so ostracized. It's crazy. It's crazy to me. It really is.
Corday. Charlotte lived in the northwest city of Caen, and like many in the area, was horrified at the rapid radicalization and increasing violence of the revolution. And the man she blamed more than anyone was Jean-Paul Marat. She wanted to bring peace back to France, and so she did something drastic.
Yeah,
she
bring
traveled
peace
to
back.
Paris.
Moderates, they help keep things civil because you don't want anything too far left and you don't want anything too far right. Both are bad. Both are crazy in their own rights. My God. You need the middle. The middle helps keep things even kilter. Because things can go really crazy if one side is too strong. It's like the Force. It always balances out. The Sith and Jedi will always be balanced out.
And told Marat she had a list of enemies for him to publish in his paper. Marat eagerly invited her in for a meeting. So where's that list of enemies you promised me? Here it is. Wait a minute. This isn't a list of enemies. It just says, yippee-ki-yay, mother... And just like
Oh my
that,
God.
Marat was no more.
Oh my
Charlotte
God,
was
she
quickly
stabbed
arrested
him.
and sent to the guillotine. Her dream of restoring
Straight up, did not see that coming. That was a very dumb plan.
peace, however, died with her. Marat
Well, yeah.
became a martyr. In temples
Oh,
of reason,
shit.
symbols of the dead Marat became the new crucifix.
Gold
In death,
bathtub.
he became an even more powerful inspiration for the extreme
If you strike me down, I shall become a more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Yep. Comes
levels
a
of
martyr.
violence that were about to rip throughout the new republic. And that's right, here comes the Reign of Terror. If you
Reign
thought
of
this
Terror.
revolution already sounds pretty violent, well, you ain't
does.
seen nothing yet, son. The
Oh,
radicals
no.
were now in
Oh,
control,
no.
and they believed not only was France surrounded by foreign enemies, but that within the masses, there were also plenty of internal ones too.
Oh,
Individuals
no.
not loyal to the revolution, conspiring to bring about its downfall. Robespierre and the rest of the radical faction were having none of it. A new committee of public safety was established with 12 members.
Public
Its
safety.
purpose was to
Yeah, public safety for the whole country. Yeah, right.
protect the new French Republic from its enemies, and it basically
From
became a
enemies
12-man
could be
dictatorship
anybody.
with Robespierre as its leading voice. The Revolutionary
God.
Tribunal was also reinstated, a special court created to streamline the process of trying suspected enemies and handing out their death sentences. With these two new institutions, Robespierre wanted to scare France's enemies straight. In September 1793,
That's so bad.
it was announced that terror would be the order of the day. In other words, fear had become official government policy.
Oh
And
no.
from then onwards, we enter into the period known as the Reign of Terror. Spies and
sad.
secret police were everywhere and watched the people closely. France's public had to be extremely careful what they said and how they behaved. Obviously, criticizing this new system or the government would quickly have you sent off to the guillotine. But that's not all.
No.
Even the most minor offense could have you tried before the Revolutionary Tribunal.
Like
Hello,
what?
Citizen Martin. Hello, Monsieur Dubois. Monsieur? Did I just hear you say Monsieur? That's the old style of address, my friend. To the guillotine. You know
That. I hope this is just a joke, but I have a feeling that has some truth in it. Oh God.
what? I didn't like him, but I do feel kind of bad for the king and his family. Oof, expressing sympathy for the royal family, are we? To the guillotine! 12 sous for a loaf of bread? That's way overpriced. To the guillotine! Man, this bread line is taking forever. To the guillotine!
Oh my God.
And you?
Seriously?
You look like you're thinking anti-revolutionary thoughts.
Thought
guillotine.
police?
Max,
Oh
we're sending
no.
way too many people to the guillotine. To the guillotine! Chop, 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 chop.
This guy is off his bonkers, dude. Holy shit. I didn't realize that's what they did. No wonder it's the Reign of Terror. That's terrifying.
It was insane. All across France, about 40,000 people were killed for
Oh,
suspected crimes
shit.
against liberty. Let's say your neighbor won't stop mowing
That's
the lawn
crazy.
at 7 in the morning. Well, then all you
That's
gotta do is tell the government they've been
No, no,
talking
no, no,
smack about the revolution. And there's a good chance they'll end up in
Oh my God, it's like the Salem witch trials. Where, like, witch is obviously not a thing, not an actual thing. It can't actually do magic. But the fact that people would go and lie to, like, get someone killed, like, say a guy wanted to, like, marry this woman, but her family said no or anything like that. He's just really pissed. He's like, if I can't have her, no one can. And goes and talk shit like, she's a witch, she cursed me into a newt, and going into Monty Python the Holy Grail there, but do shit like that, get him trialed, executed. Oh, well, we got rid of a witch, we know she's gone now, we're safe. Oh, shit like that, dude, that's horrible.
in front of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Maybe they'll even be executed, taking a metaphorical load off your shoulders and a literal one off theirs. The most prominent victim of the Reign of Terror was a certain Marie Antoinette, who was finally tried and found guilty.
She's got an AT-AT on her head. This is like a heavy subject, and it should be treated like with class, dignity. But I love that they still make fun of certain things in it. Like, they're telling a story. They're trying to keep you engaged because it can get really boring really fast. But they do a good job. They do a good job balancing both.
Of treason in 1793.
Like, that
She
just
expected she'd be
alleviated a
brought to
lot
the
of, like,
guillotine in a royal
sadness.
carriage, fit for a queen. All the
People just
Republic
getting
could
murdered
provide
like
for
that.
her, however, was a wooden tumbril. At 37 years old, the most
Wow.
hated woman in French history met her end on the 16th of October, 1793. Robespierre had saved the revolution through terror. Internal dissent was being suppressed. The food situation was no longer quite as bad. Even the French military had got its act together again and pummeled the Allies at the Battle of Fleurus. For Danton
Really?
and his followers, the time was right to try to normalize the French Republic. Hey Robespierre, so we were
Normalize?
thinking that since things are finally going better, maybe we should rein in the terror. And while we're on it, we
Oh,
could
okay.
possibly start taking it
That's
easier
what
on
they
the
mean by
church,
normalize.
and also try to end this costly war. Oh, crap.
Oh, no.
As time went on, Robespierre
So they're trying to, like, normalize it, be like, okay, we can't be in this constant state of fear and terror. People can't live good lives like that. We got to rein it in and be more moderate. And the guy just doesn't want moderate. He wants to, he's crazed with power now. Jesus.
seemed to go, for lack of a better term, a bit mental. He was hell-bent
Yeah.
on creating what he called a republic of virtue. And for him, this meant amping up the bloodshed even more. Throughout the spring and
Jesus.
summer of 1794, executions
How many people
reached
died
an
because of him?
unprecedented level during a period known
It was
as the
unnecessary
Great
deaths.
Terror. Even those closest to him found their way to the guillotine if they dared oppose his ideas and actions, and he began alienating himself from the rest.
It starts to sound like a king, huh? A dictator, huh? God. We don't want a king. Well, now you got a dictator. Horrible.
Of the convention. He created a new deistic religion called the Cult of the Supreme Being, along with the new annual Festival of the Supreme Being.
What is this?
Man, I think Robespierre is really starting to lose it. He thinks he's a god or something.
Oh,
Nonsense.
no.
Sure, he's gone a little extreme, but he doesn't think
that's
he's
a horrible
god.
thing going on now.
My children, bathe your immortal souls in...
If somebody suddenly comes up to you, or you're at an event and they just go, "My children, I am God. Listen to my words." Run for the hills and do not drink that punch. Better yet, don't drink the punch at all until you have met the host of the party. Then you know you're good, whether you're safe or not. You know what? Just be safe. Bring your own punch.
The virtue of my republic. Okay, yeah, he's completely lost it. Robespierre's ultimate mistake, however, came on July 26th, when he made a speech to the National Convention, in which he said this: "I have in my hand a brand new list of enemies to be sent to the guillotine, and many of you are on this list, but I'm not going to tell you who yet." What do you think of that? I think we should send Robespierre to the guillotine first. All in favor? No. 2 days later, Robespierre became the final victim of the monstrous terror and paranoia
He played himself. He got too cocky. Don't get cocky, kid. He got cocky. Oh, he deserved it. Holy shit.
Had created. Many historical accounts of the revolution end here.
Storming of the Bastille.
Of Robespierre and his terror. But the
Robespierre's
revolution
execution.
officially continued for another 5 years, until 1799. So
Really?
what happened between now and then? Well, after the fall of Robespierre, a more moderate political group called the Thermidorians took control of the convention.
Sounds
They wanted
about
to restore
right.
stability
What
to
needs
the
to
government.
happen.
Now, Robespierre's allies and other radicals who had fueled the terror themselves became the target of political suppression.
Who could have thought that would
Bourgeois
happen,
street
huh?
fighters took on the radical sans-culottes in the streets during a period named the White Terror. In 1795, the Thermidorians drafted a new
Constitution
constitution
attempt number
and
3.
created a government called the Directory, with the purpose of preventing power from being able to fall into the hands of a single individual again.
I don't know
As
how
this
well
new
that
government
worked
was
out.
being established, royalists who wanted to bring the monarchy back to France saw this moment as an opportunity to strike. They staged an
Give us a
insurrection in
king.
Paris and battled with the National Guard in the streets. Luckily, one Napoleon Bonaparte happened to be in Paris at the time, and he took control of the situation, firing on the crowd and putting down the insurrection. From this moment on, the people of Paris would never again be able to stage a popular uprising and lost their control over the revolution. For his actions, Napoleon became a general and was sent to take control of the French armies in Italy. The new Directory remained a fairly ineffective government for the remainder of the revolution. It was plagued with corruption and struggled to
who
keep
could
the
have seen
economy
that coming?
afloat, and as a result, wasn't very popular. For the people of France, with the strict social customs of both royalist France and the terror gone, they didn't really know what to do with themselves. Men no longer removed their hats when talking to women. Different classes began intermingling, and a publication began circulating that looked a lot like a modern dating app. It was social
modern
anarchy.
dating app.
Outside of France, the war continued. In 1795, France took the Netherlands, where they set up a puppet
Oh, wow.
state. Then they negotiated both Prussia and Spain out of the war. The British attempted to land French royalists in the west to reinforce rebellion, but that plan failed. In 1796, the French planned a three-pronged
Dude, this
attack
war's
with
not
the
going
aim of
good for
marching on
anybody but
Vienna
the French.
and knocking Austria out of the war. The two northern armies were defeated and forced to retreat. However, Napoleon in the south, with groundbreaking military strategy, won
Who could have
battle
thought
after
Napoleon
battle
would
after
start winning,
battle.
huh?
He pushed the Austrians out of Italy and
He's like the
began
greatest
closing in on
general.
Vienna.
The one of
Austrians
the greatest
freaked out,
generals
and
in
Napoleon
history.
oversaw the signing of a peace treaty. He had almost single-handedly knocked Austria out of the war. And by the way, he was only 28. So maybe it's about time
No
you moved out of
shit,
your
he's
mom's
like my
basement.
age. Oh my
Napoleon
God.
became a famed hero among
Holy
the French
shit.
people, but his aspirations were still
I didn't
higher.
realize that.
He briefly went off to Egypt and discovered a bunch of gnarly Egyptian stuff, but then the British destroyed his fleet and trapped his forces. Say, Napoleon, sir, you're not
Oh,
going to
no.
leave us here stuck in Egypt and return to France, are you? Nonsense, my boy. I would never dream of abandoning my loyal soldiers. Wow, what's that over there?
Just fucks off.
On his return to Paris, Napoleon found himself to be extremely popular, and the government extremely unpopular, and he started getting some power-hungry ideas.
Oh, no.
Conveniently, a politician named Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès approached Napoleon and said, "Hey man, since you're so popular, do you want to help me stage a coup? Great idea. Let's stage
Oh,
a coup,
no.
and then I'll coup you."
What?
Napoleon, with the help of his
What?
politician brother, entered the government chamber, possibly got punched in the face, And finally, his troops intimidated the
jeez.
council to dissolve the government and create a new constitution that basically made Napoleon a dictator. So there you have it.
There's
The
our
French
dictator.
Revolution, born with the great promise of liberty
Wow.
and equality.
I
The
didn't
common people
realize
dared challenge an oppressive
Napoleon
system that had
immediately
existed
follows the
for
French
centuries.
Revolution.
But before they knew it, they found liberty sidelined by terror, equality
Yeah.
that possibly didn't quite hit the mark, and an absolute monarchy replaced by an absolute dictator. Napoleon began stabilizing French society. He restored the Catholic Church and got rid of that crazy calendar, among other things. But he remained ever ambitious. He was France's first consul, but he slept soundly at night dreaming of being something even
Vote
bigger.
for Pedro.
Napoleon's
World
expansionist
tour.
aspirations, combined with the ongoing conflict in Europe, would eventually lead the continent into a huge conflict known today as
The Napoleonic Wars. The Napoleonic Wars. Damn. So that leads right in to the next set of videos that they did on France. I didn't realize that Napoleon followed the French Revolution. Like, it was that close. I thought it was more separated in history. But it makes sense that the revolution would cause such a vacuum of power that Napoleon was able just to slide right in because he was popular. He was a popular general in France. He seemed like he could actually do well. He single-handedly got Austria to back out of the war. So, yeah, I can see how this all happened. So, very interested to see the Napoleonic War, however you pronounce that, videos to watch that out. But we'll see. We'll see about that when the time comes. Anyways, I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.